Technology impact. Joining us is the New York Times technology reporter, Nick Bilton. He's out in San Francisco. Give us your thought, Nick, on what this means.
Well, I think, we're not really going to see the effects as far as Apple as a company for a couple of years. Steve was really a genius at looking out into the future, and a lot of the products that we'll see come out in the next couple of years are things that had his hands on it. So we won't really see those effects for quite some time. But it's going to be difficult for the company to continue to keep this. One of the things that I've heard from a lot of reporters that I work with is that Steve had this, what they called the distortion feel, where he could make you feel like your T-shirt was the most amazing thing in the world, and he did that with all of the products that he sold. People would cheer at the conferences that he would speak at. He was a really amazing marketing genius.
A lot of people were sort of disappointed these past few days in this new iPad that just came out. It really wasn't all that spectacular. Wasn't as different, the iPhone, excuse me, that just came out. And people are wondering, do you think Steve Jobs was directly involved in giving the authorization to release it? Because it doesn't necessarily have his feel to it, given the fact that it didn't necessarily break through the technology.
Absolutely. I mean, if you, in the next couple of years, any product that comes out of Apple will have Steve Jobs' fingers on it. It will have his design sense. It'll have everything that is tied to Jobs on it. And so, the iPhone 4S that came out yesterday, he was definitely involved in that. There's no way that this was something that was dreamed up a couple of weeks ago. I think where the difference comes in is that when you look at the presentation that took place yesterday at Apple, it was different people that were on stage. It was usually, Steve Jobs that was out there, and he was invigorating the audience, and he was getting people excited. And that's something that Apple's going to have a hard time trying to do now.
Yeah, Tim Cook, the new leader, he's known as a solid leader, but everyone seems to suggest he doesn't have that innovative spark that Steve Jobs had. So the question is, how is this going to affect Apple products down the road?
That is the big question. I think one of the things that Steve did when he found out he was sick was he went through and he said, okay, we're going to figure out a way to set up the company to operate when I'm no longer here. And what he's done is he's done that. Tim Cook is an amazing genius at creating the products and having the assembly lines put them together in the right pace and everything. You've got people like Phil Schiller, who's the marketing genius, and you've got this long list of people. But really, Johnny Ive, who is the design guy at Apple, is really working on products that we won't see for a couple of years. And I don't know who actually has taken over that role of the meticulous little design that Jobs was really known for. I mean, there's a great story that he called up Google one day before the iPhone launched, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and he was upset because the Google logo was like 1 pixel off, and it's something that no one really else would have seen.
Because he was really into those details early on in his career. Yeah. People were amazed at the extent he would go and watching even the most remote little detail emerge. In a word or two, what do you think his legacy is going to be?
I think he's just, he was a marketing genius. He knew how to make people. I mean, yesterday I went to the event, right, in Cupertino, and there were trucks there with the cameramen and reporters and everything ready to report on this new iPhone that was coming out. Most other companies have to pay millions and millions of dollars in advertising fees, and the fact that he was able to create this almost this magic around these products is definitely going to be his legacy.
Nick Bilton of the New York Times. Nick, thanks very much. Let's continue.